Welcome to this presentation on who does what, work division and allocation strategies of computer science student teams. My name is Meulen and I work at the University of Leiden in the Netherlands. Collaboration is a highly prevalent practice in software engineering and it can take many different forms. Collaboration occurs, for instance, when two people sit together, discuss their work together, or it can occur when a larger group of people are brainstorming, exchanging ideas and perspectives. It is known from different educational fields that when students encounter group assignments, they tend to take a specific approach of dividing up the work. At the start of the project, students usually split up the assignments into smaller tasks and then they continue to work on these tasks and complete them individually. An implication of this approach is that it can be questioned whether collaboration is actually taking place, since most of the work is being done individually, and a shared thinking process is not so clearly taking place, as would be the case when there would be brainstorming sessions of actual sitting together and working together sessions. This has not been studied specifically in the field of computer science education. Group work, however, is highly prevalent in this field, and there are also some specific characteristics here that can influence how students approach their group assignments. There tends to be quite high level of variance in the level at which students enter their studies, and also there's the availability of process data on their assignments. Our research question was, what are the work division and allocation strategies that university level computer science students employ during their group assignments? We used a qualitative study that involved 20 participants, all computer science students, 5 of whom were female. The students were all either in the final year of their bachelor's or in their master's, and they were from 4 different Dutch universities. The interview process followed a semi-structured protocol, where main and follow-up questions on the topic were predetermined, but where there was also space for the students to elaborate in the direction that they thought was relevant. The average length of the interviews was 23 minutes. The data were processed using automatic transcription software, and then transcripts were used for thematic analysis. Main themes were determined based on the theory. Within these main themes, sub-themes were identified within the data. I will describe the results using quotes from the students that really illustrate the different insights within the sub-themes that we identified. First, within the main theme of work division, which described really how in general the students approached a group assignments, one student described, so we've all made a list of topics and then discussed which one everybody thought for themselves. And then we discussed them and picked one, and that one we worked on. This shows that usually at the start of a project, students would get together, discuss the project, discuss the different tasks, and then proceed by dividing up the tasks and assigning them to individual group members. Next, and our rule is that when someone has dragged it to the check column, someone else has to check on GitHub whether the code is actually correct, and they drag it to the done column. So if everything goes well, everything will be checked before it's actually considered done. So proceeding on the assignment, students would usually regroup, be in contact with each other, check in, discuss how to proceed, ask to check each other's work, or ask for help. And the extent to which these collaborative practices took place through the projects would really differ. Some students described that they would really get together every week to discuss what everyone had done, how to proceed, what everyone needed help with. Other students described that they would only reach out to their group members if there was really a specific problem or if they had a specific question. Finally, the students also described the motivation behind this approach to their assignments. The end goal is usually to get the highest grade possible, so that's different from learning the most possible. This shows that the students chose this division of labor because this would help them the most to get a high grade and to work efficiently. This quote also shows that the students were quite aware of the approach they took. this student, him or herself, spontaneously added that this approach is different from an approach where the motivation would be to learn the most. The second main theme was task allocation, which described how in this division of labor, students assigned different tasks to the different group members. I usually work with friends who love these algorithmic problems, and then they take them on, and then I'll take, the user interface, the visual things, graphical work, mathematical work. This quote shows that in choosing different parts of the assignment, students would usually follow their preferences, their existing skills, their expertise. Further, students could also take on different roles connected to the different tasks that they would complete within the overall assignment. Within all the other groups, it was always someone who took the lead, and that doesn't necessarily mean content-wise, but maybe just communicating with the teacher, making sure everybody's there on time. This shows that usually in the group assignment, in the group projects, there would be one person taking in the role of leader, and this would be connected to the sort of tasks that the group members chose, because the leader would also often check the overall work, check the integration of the work at the end, keep track of the overall process. Together, our findings give insights in the work division and allocation strategies of computer science students during group assignments. Our findings show that it appears students take sort of a hybrid approach in their group assignments. They do really divide up the work, engaging in this division of labor. That's also been seen in other educational fields. But they also, both at the start and continuing through their group assignments, use different joint or really collaborative practices, such as discussing the project at the start, getting together to check in, to help each other, to check each other's work. Further, the student appeared quite self-aware of their approach, both of the fact that they would overall value efficiency, getting a good grade, and also of their preference for taking on the parts of the assignment that they were good at or that they liked. There are several considerations with these findings. First of all, concerning the question whether actual collaboration takes place, it does seem to be the case that within the overall division of labor approach, students also engage in joint collaborative practices that might reflect the joint thinking process. Further, concerning the fact that they really followed their preferences and their expertises in the parts of the assignments that they would usually work on, it can be questioned whether this really serves the purpose of their assignments and their education in general. Following preferences and expertises in this way might contribute to premature specialization taking place. And then on the one hand, of course, it can be considered a valued and also natural part of their education, that the students discover what they're good at, and they build upon their expertise in this specific aspect. On the other hand, it can also be said that an important aim of the student's education is to explore and encounter as many aspects of the field they're studying as possible. And in this way, the way they handle their group assignments might limit this. Finally, mostly concerning further directions for this topic, we did not take into account characteristics of the students, such as gender. And it could be really valuable, especially in the setting of a larger scale quantitative study, to also take these sort of characteristics factors into account, and perhaps model them together with the factors that we looked at to really gain a complete understanding of how students approach their group assignments and why. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the Q&A session for this paper. I have the author Anna with me, and she's available to answer your questions. So why don't you go ahead and shoot? Questions, comments? I am not seeing anything in the chat window, so maybe I can get the ball rolling in the meantime. So Anna, one of the things that I wondered was that you said in the video that the students took a grade-oriented approach when they dividing work. So this was very unsurprising to me, knowing my students. But I'm wondering whether did you observe this behavior across the board? Was it more specific to undergraduate students versus the master's students?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. We did not specifically compare the bachelor and master students in our study. Also, yeah, we had a few less master students compared to the bachelor ones. I think it would be actually would be good to look into further whether there are differences here and whether there are differences in general compared to how experienced the students are. And then maybe the question is what you would expect here, whether you would expect students to maybe start collaborating really in a true sense in terms of brainstorming a bit more as they continue through their studies, or maybe actually that they start doing that even less because they become even more specialized. That could also be the case. So
yeah,
that would definitely,
it's hard to guess, but I would expect that they would become more collaborative. However, reality sometimes does not match our expectations.
Yes.
Are there any implications of this behavior in terms of, I don't know, like assessment, meeting the learning objectives of the course, and so on?
Yes, yeah. I think one of the most important questions actually is what the learning objectives are in the first place and whether these are met when you look at the way the students behave. Because, in a sense, what we understood from the students is that, the way they approach their assignment, this is their spontaneous behavior, they're not instructed to deal with the group assignment in a certain way. They are put in a group or they choose their group and they have the assignment and then they start working on it in a way that they seem fit. And indeed, it would of course be important that this way also actually matches the learning objectives. But it seems that there's not a very conscious process behind that generally. Yeah.
Right. We have one question from Ita. Are there any directions that we can give to students so that they can gain from group work in the way we require?
Yes, that's a good question. I think here as well, of course, the first thing to really, I think if you ask as an instructor or as an educator, the first thing to do for yourself, I would say, is really determine what you would think you would like them to gain from the assignment and from their specific course or their education in general. And then indeed, it can be considered how that could best be fostered. Because, if you would like them to gain as much experience as possible with different types of aspects of their studies, of their assignments, of their specific course, then you could consider setting some explicit instructions for the students to all work on different parts and limit a little bit the tendency they have to work on what they know best or what they like best. So that's one possibility. Another is if it would really be your aim that they also gain in terms of collaboration skills and practicing this, and then that could also be fostered, I think, quite well by, for example, instructing them to engage in regular brainstorming sessions together, to check in with each other, to discuss how to proceed, how it's going. So I think this could definitely be a more explicit part, perhaps, of the assignment in the first place. Make them aware they are collaborating, and try to motivate those aspects that you consider important.
Okay. So there's a question from Ari. And he's asking, in software architecture, there's a lot of talk about Conway's law, suggesting that the way people collaborate should be aligned with, or even directly, influences the system under construction. Do you see any effects like this? And this was a topic actually that came up in a previous paper as well.
Okay, yeah, I see. Let me have a look at the question myself. I don't think I'm familiar with this, and also I don't know if I've seen this with the students myself. This effect, perhaps because of their level at which they are working. Because of course there are some differences between what we see, and there are quite some similarities between what we see in like professional workplace and with the students, but there are also quite some differences because of they're still being in the learning stage. No, I'm not familiar with any effects like this with the students. No.
Could also be that the systems teams are too small for effects like that. Yes.
Something like that, definitely. Yes, yeah.
So, maybe I'm not seeing any more questions. So maybe I can try to make you wrap it up by commenting on kind of what do you think is actionable from this research in terms of how it affects things like team formation, course design, assessment, mentoring. Are there some ways that we can use the insights to improve software engineering education?
Yes, yeah. I think what I would think of first is, also make use of what we saw, what the students do spontaneously themselves, which is that even though they're not always explicitly instructed to, they seem to be quite aware of how they work and the choices they make. So I think one thing that we could try to do is, make this even more explicit and put it in part of their in the instruction of their assignments and discuss it with them, like how do you approach such an assignment and what are your considerations for the different choices that you make. Because we saw some examples of students explaining that when they check each other's work, that they're very careful in making the distinction between giving feedback on how someone else is doing, but making sure not to take over, so not to themselves go do it over again, even though sometimes they would consider maybe they knew a better way to do it. They would still let it be the other person's work. And I think this reflects quite mature sort of conscious process of how to work with other people. So I think these provide starting points for us to address this more explicitly with them and get them to talk about and consider, like, how does it work collaborating, what is important, how do you approach an assignment in the first place. And so make this a bit more of a consciously taught skill, I think.
We have a question from Elke. She's asking, we have projects with mixed teams consisting of bachelor as well as master students. Do you have any experience with mixed teams like that?
Okay. That's very interesting. No, I don't have any experience with that, actually. I would be very curious because then, I can imagine, of course, obviously the difference in level between the members of a team would be even larger. But also maybe indeed, like we considered at the beginning, maybe also the way they approach the assignment could differ. And then I can imagine maybe some dynamics could occur where some of the master students take in maybe also a leader role, because we saw this happens a lot also within more evenly leveled groups. So no, that would definitely be interesting to see how the dynamic then would work. Yes.
Yeah, Elke is confirming that master students tend to take on more leadership roles.
Yes, I can definitely imagine, which can also be seen as something, maybe nice that this occurs now naturally at the stage where they are in compared to the other students within the team. But at the same time, of course, this is also something to consider whether you want this. Yes.
Right. Okay, so we have some 13 seconds left. And we're going to be automatically asked to join the discussion group. Thank you, Anna. Let's give it up for Anna virtually, actually. Applause. And